Here now is Karen Finney, columnist for The Hill, former DNC communications director. We have David Webb, radio talk show host and co-founder of Tea Party 365, and townhall.com political editor Guy Benson. He just penned, quote, "Anatomy of a Flop. GOP cliff counters offer fizzles." Oh, my God. Let me go to you, Guy Benson. It sounded to me like President Obama talking repeatedly about tax rates, which disses Mr. Boehner. Boehner's got other problems. Guy Benson, is this negotiation dead or is it still alive?
Well, it's alive, but it seems like it's on life support. And I do not envy John Boehner at this particular hour. He's getting it from all angles. The left isn't happy with him. The Democrats are rejecting his proposals. He's got an insurrection on the right. It's ugly. But the piece that you mentioned at townhall.com, setting aside some of the substance here, and I think, of course, substance matters more than anything else, but we're in an age, especially an age of media, where everything is visual. And winning the argument involves making your case to the public and changing perceptions. There's a new poll out today that shows pretty much the public unchanged on whom they would blame for the fiscal cliff if we go overboard. And it's almost 2-to-1 they blame Republicans. It's been that way for weeks now. Republicans did what yesterday? They had a proposal. I think it's completely defensible. I think it is totally reasonable. I think it's middle ground. They put it in a letter, and then they leaked it to the press. And that was it. I mean, They did some media, but, I mean, if you're going to want to change the game, which Republicans absolutely have to do at this point, you have to make a big splash, and they didn't even come close.
I'm going to talk about changing the game in a second, but Karen Finney, I want to go to you.
Yeah.
With respect to President Obama's TV interview today, did you think you heard any more conciliatory, compromising discussions about making a deal on both taxes and spending, Karen Finney? Did you hear anything conciliatory? I don't think I did, but I admit I didn't see the whole interview.
I think you heard what you have heard from the president all along. I mean, I think he has been incredibly consistent. I have to say, this is a stunner. I agree with Guy. I mean, part of the challenge here is, in terms of the public perception, the president knows that he's got the public on his side, not just because of the polls that say, you know, that 2-to-1 people would blame Republicans if this deal goes down, but also remember the exit polling from the elections, and all other polling that shows people are fine with taxes going up on the top 2%. So the president knows that he is having this negotiation with a much stronger hand than the last time he and Boehner went through this. And he has, this is part of the reason why I think he's been so firm on this issue of rates, and part of why the deal, you know, so-called deal from John Boehner was just a non-starter.
All right, let's go to David Webb, because, David, big tax increases are on the table, whether you're John Boehner or actually Mr. Obama wants higher tax rates and lids or deduction caps. Mr. Boehner said, how about just deduction caps? So you've got lots of taxes, David Webb. Nobody's talking about spending. And I want to ask you, is there a Tea Party conservative revolt brewing? You heard Senator DeMint today. Some of the others, they don't like what they hear. Is Mr. Boehner in trouble with his right wing?
Yes, he is. When it comes to the fiscal conservatives, they've already purged Amash, Hulskamp, and Schweikert. This is, you know, Larry, you said it, spending cuts. They're talking about cutting $250 billion here on one side, $300 billion on the other. Let me get a teaspoon and bail out the ocean, okay? Because we're not talking about this, and even when they get somewhat serious in this kabuki theater that's going on about spending, they're really talking about slowing the rate of the average growth, 4.3% a year. So we'll slow it a little and say that's a savings. This is ridiculous. You know, polls, I don't care about the polls, exit polls during the election or anything otherwise. Let me tell you, America, what matters here is the economics and the numbers. And Larry, this is about the numbers. We can't afford this. We've got $16+ trillion right now in debt. We've got $87 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Those are promises that are currently made that we have to keep. Where do you think we're going to get this? Out of this kabuki theater?
But guys, this is part of why I think part of what's disingenuous about this conversation. When you hear Speaker Boehner talking about, these loopholes, he's not talking about specific loopholes, and that is exactly the same rhetoric that we heard from Mitt Romney that was rejected roundly. And not to mention the fact that most economists say you can't get there just on, closing loopholes, particularly if you can't even name which ones you get.
But that's
and by
one
the way, hold
part
on,
of it,
by
Karen.
the way, the president has already signed into law more spending cuts than was proposed in Simpson-Bowles.
Karen,
Yes, in the
that
Budget
is
Control
such a
Act. And he has
joke.
put
It's not even
forward very
laughing.
specific plans
Karen,
in
I
his
love you.
2013 proposed
Karen,
budget.
I love you,
but you can't say he hasn't
Karen,
put
I love
forward
you.
ideas.
I love you,
Karen, the
Karen, but that
talking points are
DNC talking
ridiculous
point
on
is
this.
not going to fly because all they're
actually the
doing,
truth. It's not a talking
they're
point,
using the
Larry.
stuff that was done in the Budget Control Act last year. They're using the rundown in the war spending. Those are terrible
But now you've got
talking
Boehner
points.
saying, how about this Bowles-Simpson
Yeah,
plan?
Larry, let me sum up
I want to go to Guy
Bowles'
Benson
point on
about
this.
another point. Hang on a second. I want to go to Guy Benson on another point, Guy. There's talk today, a lot of buzz on webs and so forth, that the Republicans might have what they call a doomsday scenario. I want to get your take on this. If there is a budget stalemate, okay, if there's a stalemate, then the Republicans will allow a vote on the House floor, which is the Democrats from the Senate. Okay, middle-class tax cuts across the board will be preserved. The upper brackets will be ended. They will vote present, Guy Benson. They will not vote for it. They will not vote against it. They'll vote present. Therefore, it will go through. That is called the doomsday scenario. Somebody said to me it's a strategic retreat. What's your take on this?
Well, in some ways, it would be an appropriate homage to President Obama to vote present en masse because he was famous for doing that in the Illinois legislature. And look, I think that we've also heard rumors maybe what they would do is put up the president's most recent offer, which was ludicrous. It abolishes the debt limit. It includes a new stimulus. I mean, it is this woefully silly. It's not even a plan. It's not even a proposal, really. But you could put that in legislative language, put it up for a vote, and everyone vote present, let the Democrats pass it and completely own it. Republicans would say, we're not obstructing, we're letting you guys do what you want, and essentially let the country burn. And I just don't think that's, I think it's seductive, but I think it to some extent, but it's irresponsible. I mean, the people of this country returned Republicans to the House of Representatives in control by a substantial margin for a reason, and to just throw up your hands and concede the floor to President Obama and just say, go ahead and do it, I just don't think
They
you
ought
can.
to keep fighting.
It's a breach of the public trust if you do that.
I got to leave it there. I got to leave it there. Thanks to all of you. Karen Finney, David Webb, Guy Benson, thanks very much.